Hey, hey, it's your boy LS3. It's Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, then at least your mind should be. Let's go. Hey, Medicine Ball, man. We focusing on mental health, how to keep it up, how to keep your brain active, man. Don't be like that guy who skip leg day, man. You know how you work out your upper body and you skip that leg day so your legs is not as developed. It's the same with your brain, man. If you don't actively work it out, it won't be developed. You know, yo, that beat is hard. Your brain, man, possibly the least visible but most important muscle that you have. Medicine Ball with LS3, man. We just focusing on ways to be better when it comes to mental health. We also going to discuss mental health, the taboo about it, and talk about some things that the average person may not know. So just rock with me and let's get it. All right. So when I came up playing sports, being a bigger kid, I was delegated a lot of the time to the offensive line. Now, as I'm younger, coming up in the African American community, it was organized sports, but it was simple things that I would later learn that we weren't taught. That maybe the white kids are more organized, or more schools or more rec centers that were geared towards building up people to play football long term. I wasn't privy to a lot of the information. So what do I mean by that? So, when I was coming up, it was pretty much fire off the line, hit the guy in front of you, make sure he doesn't get past you. That was it. That was pretty much the extent of it growing up until I got into high school. Now I go to high school and I go to a high school in Gwinnett County called Shiloh High School. Go Generals. Shiloh High Schools. And it was at this point that I get handed a playbook. So, of course, I'm pretty much, to be honest, I was the only black person that I can remember being on the offensive line. So I'm thinking to myself, man, like, what's going on with this playbook here? Like, why am I getting handed a playbook? We're not running the ball. We're not going out for to catch a pass. We're not doing anything like that. I get the playbook, I flip open the playbook, and oh my God, these plays are for us, the big boys. These plays are for us, the big boys. Now, my white friends, it wasn't anything new to them. So I didn't know that if you called a play such as a dive 32 versus a dive 22, one of them meant go to the left and one of them might have meant go to the right. And I didn't know about an A gap or a C gap or, things of that nature. I didn't know about any of that as far as being on the offensive line. So, with my white friends, a lot of those guys have been playing together for like years and years, like since they were like 5 or 6 or something to that nature. And, just to break it down a little bit more. So, up front, there's five guys, right? In the middle, there's the center, and the center is the guy who hikes the ball. He starts everything. And on the right side of him are two guys, the right guard, the right tackle, left side, two guys, left guard, left tackle. So in between these individual positions, they would be known as gaps, right? So in between, like say a center and the right guard, that might be known as the A gap or et cetera, just to give you an idea. So I'm explaining all this to let you know that these big guys are actually very, very intelligent and they had plays. Next time, if you get a chance to see a play written up, drawn up, or something to that nature, take a look at those guys up front and you'll see that they actually have lines coming out of them as well to either go to the left or the right, but it's way more, my friend. So that's the first thing I just want to kind of bring you guys mind to about the offensive line because I'm going to pull this all back and relate it. But these guys are unexpectedly intelligent. Like I said, I got the playbook. I almost crapped my pants, man. I had no idea what was going on, and I was like, wow, these guys are extremely smart. So that's the first thing that I wanted to bring attention to. The fact that these guys are like on the outside looking in, you're a casual fan or a normal person, not on the field and not knowing what's going on, you wouldn't understand how intelligent these guys are. The second thing that I immediately begin to understand is the amount of selflessness these guys had to have. And by that, what I mean is It's not a glory position. It's no glory for an offensive lineman. You're not the one who's scoring the touchdowns. You might not get the chance to do a little celebration move or something to that nature. You don't get on the front page per se. Nobody gives you a up for doing your job. And to be quite honest, the better you are at doing your job as an offensive lineman, which is blocking, the less you get praised. It becomes expected. The more consistent you are at doing that, you don't get any praise. If the running back rips off a 20-yard run, realistically, everyone should kind of probably be like, hey, those big guys are front of the reason that this happens, but you're not going to get any of that. You got to be extremely selfless and be okay with doing your job, doing it well, but letting somebody else get, the props for it. All right. So the third thing was kind of an idea that went into two things, and it's mistakes to not notoriety, like your mistake to notoriety ratio. So, for instance, if the quarterback were to throw the ball 25 times and only 15 of those were complete, so that means he threw it 25 times, but 15 of those were actually caught and turned into a play, he would be considered an okay quarterback. You'd be considered all right. You wouldn't get blasted or anything. As an offensive lineman, and on offense, in one game, there's anywhere from, I would say, 50 to 100 plays. If that quarterback gets sacked, and let me explain what a sack is. A sack means, this is for the people who don't know, a sack means that the defense was able to get to the quarterback before he could either hand the ball off or throw the ball away. One sack, now everybody knows your name on the offensive line. That's going to get you famous. Not if you block all those plays and the running back has 200 yards. Chances are, if you ask running back in the NFL who have good running games or getting a lot of money, I guarantee you they're going to give some kind of props or give some type of, award or bring awareness to the offensive lineman that helps them. But if you get one sack, now everybody's going to know you. They're not going to know you for all the good blocks you did the 100 plays before that. They're not going to know you for any of that. They're going to know you for that. And I'll do you one better. Not even a sack, maybe a hold. So a holding call, if for those who don't understand, is when maybe that guy doesn't get to the quarterback, but as an offensive lineman, you're supposed to be able to stop the other guy without balling up or grabbing or holding his jersey. Like there's only you can't. You're just not free. Whatever you want to do to stop them, you got to do it in a certain way. You got to have a certain technique. But a holding call, you held him up. You grabbed his jersey and got caught so your quarterback wouldn't get pummeled by a guy twice his size. Now everybody's going to criticize you. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about the fans. Because the people on the field, they know what's going on. They know how important it is. But to the normal fans, now everybody's going to remember your name. They're going to remember your jersey number. And it's going to be for something like that. So your notoriety comes and like I said, a quarterback 25 passes, if they complete 15 they're okay. Nobody's going to point out the fact that they didn't complete 10 passes. An offensive lineman, you block the guy 74 times, on the 75th time if he gets a sack, everybody's going to know who you are. So that's one thing I had to kind of bring, wrap my mind around as well and I was like, man, these guys here don't have no leash. They have no mistakes they can make. Like they have to be almost perfect, or else, they're gonna be crucified. You can lose your job if you give up a sack. Like I can even remember, like when I got into high school and. Not even in ninth grade, but like 12th grade, when you're getting ready to go off to college and whatnot, they used to give grades to the offensive linemen. Man, there was a guy on the team, Nelly. Big shout out to Nelson. He know who he is. And every team has a stud. He was our stud. His score on a great week used to be like a 83. Man, I judged that based on how the grading scale was then. I very rarely got any higher than a D or a C. So like I might not give up any sacks or any holds, but I still would get like a 75. And I used to be like, geez, Louise, that will cost you your job. So the mistakes and the notoriety, they works a different way in everybody else's eyes when you're on the offensive line. All right, so the fourth thing I wanted to kind of bring attention to was the ability to control your emotions and pick your angry spots as an offensive lineman. And As an offensive lineman, you may hear this term in sports. I know a lot of people use it a lot with Russell Westbrook, but you have to have that dog in you. They say that a lot. Like, so as an offensive lineman, you got to have that dog in you, man. You got to be tenacious. You got to be relentless. You're running into another human being as hard as you possibly can, as fast as you possibly can, every play you're on that field. You got to take a certain pride and a certain mentality of, yo, this guy is not getting past me. Like hell or high water. This dude, there's no way he's gonna get past me. There's no way I'm not gonna be able to physically control this grown ass man the way I want to control him. So you have to have that dog in you, right, as an offensive line. But here's the thing. There's different type of blocks at this level. So if you're doing a running play, chances are you are going to, as hard and angry and as violent as you can, run into the other person on the opposite side of you somewhere, all the way out. But there's different type of blocks. So there's a pass block, right? With a pass block, and currently right now, I believe they're doing the countdown of the top 100 players in the NFL. There's a couple of offensive linemen on that list. Go look at it. When you pass block, your first step is actually kind of a back step, right? Because you need to be able to absorb the momentum and the force of this guy who's trying to get by you or go through you to get to the quarterback. So on a pass block, even though you got to have that dog in you and you got to have that same mentality, you don't just fire off. Your first step is actually a step backwards to absorb the force, see if they're going to run some type of stunt, which means the defensive lineman or the defensive players may crisscross as the ball gets hiked. It's all kind of stuff going on. So you have to do a pass block. And I'll take you one further. They have a pull block. So that means you might actually have to step back, go and run down the offensive line back. This is after the ball is hiked to run around the corner on the left side, and you might be coming from the right to lead the block play 20 yards down the field. So, when all of this is going on, those are three of the basic blocks, I would say, just for the sake of explanation. You got to remember, when we call these plays in the huddle, we don't know what the defense is going to look like when you're playing somebody else. They may come up there and you'll be like, okay, we got five guys. We called the play to block five dudes on the defensive line. There's only three dudes on the defensive line, and there's a couple of guys standing up behind them, linebackers or whatnot. So now, guess what? On the offensive line, we're not even talking about the quarterback who changes plays at the line. We're talking about on the offensive line. Next time you watch a game, look at those guys. When they're pointing and they're screaming and they're pointing, they're talking to the other guy. Wide, wide. That means you might be about to pull around, and that guy you're pulling around the block isn't in that gap. So now you got to know, okay, so now I need to shave off of this defensive lineman and move up to the next play. So you have to be tenacious, you have to be angry, you have to be violent with it, but you got to pick your spots because if you go out there, and I guarantee if you're supposed to pull a call, pull a block, and you're not able to communicate that because you're just so focused on being violent and angry towards the person in front of you, guess what? You're going to go back to what we were talking about in number three, notoriety and mistakes, because they're going to know your name after that once that defensive lineman shoots into that backfield unblocked and take your quarterback head off. It's nothing worse than turning around and seeing your quarterback on the ground with some 300-pounder on top of him and knowing that 300-pounder was your responsibility, man. So you have to really be able to control your emotions and pick your angry spots and be able to balance that well as an offensive lineman. So, how am I going to pull all of this together? How am I going to pull all of this together? Mental health. When you're dealing with someone who might be suffering from a mental health illness, man, um, or if you're someone who's dealing with mental health issues, you have to have that unexpected intelligence. You have to have that unexpected intelligence. Because guess what? The average person on the outside looking in who doesn't know what's going on down on that field, aka your mind, or the group of people who do know that you're dealing with some type of mental health issue, they're just going to judge you off as to be somebody who may be, I mean, and I don't want to say it, but may be dumb or may not be able to think like everybody else, which in a way that part is true, but they're not going to expect you to be as intelligent as you really may be because guess what? You got to carry that with you and be able to deal with that on a day to day basis, and they don't understand how hard that is for you. A person who has no understanding or may not even have empathy or sympathy, they're not going to understand that. So you got to be unexpectedly intelligent, man. You also got to be selfless. Nobody's going to wish you a good job or tell you good job because you were able to get up out of the bed that day when you were depressed or may have been dealing with some anxiety, or you may be schizophrenic or have bipolar disorder. Nobody's going to pat you on the butt for the days you get up and able to put a smile on your face and mentally deal with the world and be quote unquote, as they would say, normal, even though you are normal. Nobody's going to celebrate you for that. You're not going to get a good job for that, even though you have to put in a little bit more effort. And hey, I'll take it a step further. Maybe it's a lot more effort than the average person to go day to day. You also got to, just like the offensive lineman, understand how mistakes and notoriety work with you. You're not going to be granted those opportunities for mistakes if you were somebody who was courageous enough to be dealing with some type of mental health issue and let people know about it. Man, they're just waiting for you to get upset. They waiting on you to stub that toe and let out a couple of curse words so they can say that person's crazy. See, I knew it. They were crazy. They didn't take their medicine. You know, they're going to wait on you to make those mistakes. And you're not going to get props for your 364 days, 365 days in a leap year that you can go out into world and be a regular member of society who contributes. You're not going to get any props for that. Nobody's going to know your name for that. They're only going to know your name when you do something that most people are afforded to do. Maybe you have a bad day. That's when you're going to get your notoriety. That's when you're going to be known if people know that you're suffering with something that has to do with mental health. When you have a bad day. And that goes into the fourth thing, man. You got to pick your angry spots. You have to know how to control your emotions. In a way, it's a heavy burden to suffer from mental illness. And if you put yourself out, it's even heavier of a burden because now you got to think strategically, man. You may want to be to confront someone who made you upset, or you might get into an argument, but you got to know that the average person who doesn't have an understanding of what's going on that field, i.e., with your mind or with your situation, they're just going to say you're out of control. So you got to be strategic, right? So it works hand in hand because playing the offensive line and dealing with the mental health issue allows you also to deal with an offensive line that people are waiting on you to cross. But that's what we're here to talk about on this podcast. We're here to let you know, and even if you're not suffering from anything, there's a way that you can work your mental, be aware of what's going on, exercise your brain, exercise your emotions, communicate with yourself better, and be able to make decisions and maneuver in a way to where A, you may not get offended, B, you won't offend anyone, and C, you can live your life as a normal person without having to go through any scrutiny. So I thought it would be pretty dope to, kind of tie those two things in together, and something that I kind of uh, posted in my notes here as I was thinking about it. But we're gonna talk about that more, man. So hey, I want y'all to take a minute here, check out this beat. When I come back, I'm gonna tell you about my story, what more we're gonna be doing here on this podcast, and yeah, man, medicine ball, exercise your brain. Yeah. Hey, welcome back. Medicine Ball with your boy LS3, and if you ain't in shape, then your brain should be. We trying to give your brain a six pack. Hey, woo, that's hard. All right, so we gonna get right back into it, man. I'm gonna go into my story. Who am I? Why am I talking about mental health? What do I got going on? Well, it was about 2004. Um, I was going through a lot of things. I was in college, man. I was living real free, real open, things of that nature. Drinking a lot, hanging out, just living a life. Something just wasn't quite right. Wasn't just quite right. And it was actually one of my fraternity brothers who went ahead and made a comment that I actually listened to and decided to go ahead and go to a therapist or a doctor and get diagnosed. And 2004, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder, man. To a lot of people who know me, this will be a surprise. Something I purposely withheld. A lot of relationships I had, to them, this will be a surprise. Something I withheld. And let me be very, very clear, man. I was a popular guy. I was in a fraternity. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I threw a lot of parties around down here. Hung out with the who's who's. Even to today, still hang out with the who's who's, man. And it's a big thing to come out and open yourself up to scrutiny, to say that you have a mental health disorder. Now, to those who don't know, man, if you tell somebody you're bipolar, that can be very intimidating to someone who doesn't know anything about it. And you know, anyway, I went ahead and got diagnosed. I was diagnosed, and of course, they gave me these pills that I would have to essentially take for the rest of my life. And at that point, I didn't take it serious. This is 2004. It wasn't as out in the public as it is now. Even I believe like Facebook was just coming out at this time, to give you an idea. So I didn't do any research on it. I didn't look into my family background. I didn't look into the medicine. I didn't look into even what bipolar really meant. I just accepted what they said and took the medicine, and that was kind of the extent with it. So, I was diagnosed by, and we're gonna get into all of this more as we discuss the podcast. But in my situation, I was diagnosed by actually an African doctor, and I don't know if he was a psychiatrist or what, but he met with me no more than twice, made this diagnosis, gave me the medicine, and my mother, my family, we do have kind of a history of, anxiety, a little bit of depression, and things of that nature in my family. But my mother was all with it. She was all with it, you know. And as I continue my podcast, I'll expound upon my story more. But I just accepted it, man. So for years, I accepted it until finally, I say maybe about 5 to 8 years in, I finally got a therapist who was actually a family member's therapist, a white guy, man, and he changed my life, man. And I think that that's one of the first important things about dealing with mental health. If you want to come out, you got to feel like you can have someone to talk to. And this guy, it may be three people who know much about my life as this guy did, man. He made me very, very comfortable. I was just lucky. He was dope. He made me very, very comfortable. He explained to me the medicines. He listened to what I had to say about the side effects. He was open to me doing my own research and bringing up other medicines. And at this time is when I really started researching it. My father, I have four older sisters. I'm the first boy, and I have a brother behind me. I have my father's name, and he was really not understanding of it at all. And it was a situation at the time where I was living with my father. And so even though I'm living with a person who doesn't understand it, he really looked down on it, to be completely honest with you. And at one point he actually made a comment to something to the something to the extent of, I ask God sometimes, why my son? And that really screwed with me. It really hurt. And I was still an angry young man. So I wasn't doing myself any favors because I was still getting angry. I was reacting to everything. And when I was getting angry, I'm talking punching holes in the wall, breaking things, saying stuff that was just beyond disrespectful, rude, and mean, and really lashing out. And I didn't really understand it. I just figured I was taking the medicine. So it was at this time that I started really doing research and looking into the medicines and the side effects of the medicines and my lifestyle. And I started realizing, like, hey, it's not cool to be diagnosed with something. So I hid it because of the things I was doing. I was throwing the parties, I was dabbling in music and things of that nature. I was a cool kid, and I hid it. Um, Even now, I was just mentioning to a friend, that now that I look back on it, a majority of my relationships that I was in, Like I could not have possibly thought that they were going to turn out to be anything serious for the simple fact that I didn't let these girls know. Like I always thought it was weird having to sneak and take this medicine every day. I'm living with my father. He doesn't understand at all. He just at all. And we're going to circle back around to that later on down the line because he actually was a Vietnam veteran and has PTSD, which is a form of mental illness, believe it or not. But we're going to get back to that. So I just wanted to come out and I thought it was important that I tell my story. And, I'm a person, like when I do go on social media, I've had an amazing growth here within the last year. And this is all stuff we're going to discuss because I no longer take my medicines. However, I must medicine ball, man. I have to exercise my brain daily and make an effort to be aware of my emotions, how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling depressed or anxiety or whatnot, I got to be aware of that and make it be front and center. I do my meditation every day. And it took a lot for me to come out, but I thought when I'm on social media, getting back to that, um, I often the things that stick out to me is not the old face challenge, not the Drake challenge, but the people who type statuses like "I'm really depressed today" and nobody understands, or someone might type a status and say something like, "Man, I wish I could end it all," and everybody thinks it's funny. Those are the type of things that stood out to me, and I was like, "Man, they feel you." So one day, and I guess my loved ones who really know me, who really, really know me, and I talk to them about it, have always said, like, man, you always mention this mental health thing and you want to talk about it and whatnot. Push me to go ahead and follow through with this podcast, which I'm hoping to create into something a little bit bigger, but to bring awareness to it, man. So I just kind of wanted to tell my story, man, because it take a lot. It takes a lot of courage to come out, and we're in a climate now where people commit crimes and they blame it on mental health. Even Nipsey Hussle's killer, right? Rest in peace to Nip. But Nipsey Hussle's killer, I believe they found him trying to turn himself in at a mental health clinic and plead insanity. And I don't think that's cool because number one, I don't think he was insane, and number two, I think that the mental health thing is starting to go down a very bad road to where they're going to treat it kind of like an outcast type of a thing, right? The more people who commit these violent crimes and do this atrocious stuff and blame it on mental health, it's only a matter of time before somebody on the opposite side who doesn't maybe know anything about it is going to come up with some type of petition or something and be like, well, hey, if hell, what if you go to a psychiatrist and you have a bad day? And from that bad day, they diagnose you as being a manic depressant, and that's something on your jacket for the rest of your life. And I don't think it would be cool for that to be frowned upon, or you may be not able to get the same opportunities afforded to everyone else, man. So I know that it's important to me, especially among the African American community, and really, I don't want to even single it out to that, but I know that it's a little bit even more taboo. And with me living it, I think it's important that we speak about this and be blunt about it, man, and let people know that there's people who understand, there's people who care, there's people who are living it, and there's ways to live with it, and that you don't have to be scared. Like, you guys will be surprised how many of your friends who you might consider to be the strong ones, like me, I know my friends consider me to be very strong and one with little emotions, but really deep down they wouldn't know the things that I go through. And I don't want to make it a crutch or anything, but I think it's important that there's an outlet and an open forum to discuss it. And furthermore, I think we need to just discuss mental health in general, just as far as people who may not have any type of diagnosis, exercising your mind, man. You got to get up. When some people say you got to think positive, you got to speak positive, or maybe you have to change the way you think. All of this is what I'm trying to incorporate into this medicine ball. So even if you need to get up one day and you have no type of diagnosis, you're not going to feel good every day. But it's important every day that you take a gauge of your emotional state, your brain, be conscious of what's going on with you. If you got any type of anxiety or depression, or maybe you had something tragic happen, it's important that you face those things head on, man, and you work your brain out, because you want to give your brain a six pack, and then you'll be more in depth with dealing with people and dealing with your own emotional state and learning how to shake through a funk if you're in a funk or a slump and whatnot. So I have a lot of big stuff planned, man. I've reached out to a couple of people, and I'm one thing that I think is really dope is a lot of athletes. I'm noticing a lot of athletes are coming out and they're speaking on the mental health. Like I'm noticing here and there, people of status, and I think it's important that people of status speak on it, so that people who judge being normal or unnormal can see, like, hey, someone you think successful may be going through this, so this is something we want to pay attention to. But just the world would also be just a much better place if everybody were able to pay attention to themselves and get their mental straight when they deal with other people. It would be just an easier and a better place all around, man. So that's kind of my story. I've been diagnosed. I've been through psychiatrists. I know what it's like trying to look for a doctor. I know what it's like trying to deal with family who think it's taboo. I know what it's like trying to deal with the relationship. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give people an outlet to talk about it, because the last thing you want is that person that you love and that person that you care about who may be suffering from a mental illness to, maybe hurt themselves, or they not be happy, or they're struggling every day and you don't know about it because we're picking fun at it. you know um just like I hear people all the time, I know I heard this a lot, and this is a big reason why I kept it on the wraps. People would just casually say stuff like, oh man, that girl is bipolar, or did he take his medicine today? You got to be aware of the things that you say and the people that you're saying it around. And if you're somebody dealing with it, you also have to be aware that most of the time, people mean no harm. My favorite rapper, Jay Z, and I don't know if the quote came from him. He says some pretty dope stuff, so it could be that it came from him. But he said, people fear what they don't understand and hate what they can't conquer. I guess that's just the theory of man. Think about that. People fear what they don't understand and hate what they can't conquer. So I just wanted to, let you guys know that this is something I plan on talking about. And also for people who don't have any type of mental health issues, we still want to give you a way to exercise your brain, man. So what I'm going to do is today, I'm kind of wrapping up. I gave you the story about the football and comparing offensive line. I've told you my story. Wrap up. I just want to give you guys, just a quick little something that I do every day that's kind of like my little workout for my brain. And that's as soon as I wake up, I drink my water. I try to do a little something to get my heart rate going, but I stop and I gauge my emotions. So every morning, every single day, when I wake up, before I start to go into doing what I'm going to do for the day, I gauge my emotions. So I challenge you, I implore you, just gauge your emotions, be aware of your emotional state, be mindful about how the current emotional state can affect the rest of your day, and be mindful that you're mindful of that emotional state, so that you can start to focus on changing it into one that's going to be more conducive to what you want to do to go about your day in the most productive and happy way. So it's real simple, man. Take 5 minutes. When you wake up, and I'm not talking about tired, but maybe you feel like you're having some anxiety or depression, or, you don't feel you don't have that energy. Stop for a second. Realize, okay, hey, I'm not feeling the perkiest today. Be aware of that. Like, hey, how can me not feeling perky affect my way in a negative or positive way? And if it's not the emotion that I want, how can I start thinking right now to change that emotion? And it's just like anything else when you're working out. You got to do it every day. You're not going to see results the first day. So if you're feeling sad tomorrow and you wake up, don't try to gauge it and be like, I'm just feeling upset, it's nothing, and move on. Do that, be aware of it, and make a conscious effort to be aware of it as you move throughout your day. If you go to make breakfast next, if you're feeling down, hey, think about how you're feeling now. Okay, hey, I'm feeling down, but I'm still going to make breakfast. I'm going to push through it. Do that every morning, and watch how conscious you start to become each day with your mental state, the way you're thinking and how it can affect your life going forward. All right. So I just call it, yo, be aware, mindfulness. I call it mindfulness. And, even if you don't meditate, it doesn't take all day. Take a few minutes. I mean, man, you could donate a few minutes to making sure that your brain is in the right spot as you start your day. Heck, maybe you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Just stop, take a breath, realize your emotional state, check your emotional state. If it's not the one you want, peep how you can try to make it be the one that's going to help you be more productive and more mindful throughout your day. All right. So, hey, I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Again, this is LS3 with Medicine Ball, or Medicine Ball with your boy LS3 to be exact. And if you ain't in shape, at least your mind should be. Give your brain a six pack. We'll be back next week with more info for you, and I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Take care. Salute. See you later. Peace, love, and blessings. I'm out.